We'll call the meeting to order. I invite you to join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Kolpak. Here. Pepcorn.
Here.
Preston. Here. Strand.
Here.
Mahoney.
Here. Library. Job Service North Dakota is offering on-site walk-in services at the Carlson Library on November 7th from 2 to 4 p.m. Services offered include job-seeking assistance, veteran services, information on training programs, resume building assistance, limited unemployment insurance assistance, and migrant and seasonal farm worker services. And in November, library's dance workshop and story time for kids in partnership with the FM Ballet is on November 8th at 6:30 p.m. in the main library. We can learn how to do some ballet dance, I think. Other dedication ceremony was held on October 27th to mark the turnover of the diversion inlet structure. The ceremony was supposed to take place at the site of the inlet near Horace. However, due to inclement weather, it was held here in the Commission chambers. Ames Construction and the U.S. Corps of Engineers are wrapping up work on the major component of the $3.2 billion FM area diversion project, which means that it is time for the Metro Flood Diversion Authority to take on operations and maintenance. Other components in the project include the rising of I-29, which should be done November 1st, which will be able to have two-way traffic up and down, and completing other structures, including the Wild Rice structure, which is 95% complete, the Red River structure, which is 29% complete, and the Drayton Dam, which is about completed. It's a great milestone. It just tells us that we're going to get flood protection, and that really helps us move forward. Is there a motion to approve the order of agenda adding an additional item to the public hearings for the application filed by Dakota Airparts International for payment in lieu of tax exemption, and that items 53B and C, the ordinance, be received and filed and placed on first reading at the next regular meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Mr. Preston.
Is there something on the table here about the addition?
Kimber, do we have an addition for the commissioners? Sent by email on Friday. Could we just have somebody quickly make copies so the commissioners can have it in print? Pardon? It'll be in a PowerPoint? Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Nay? Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the September 18th, 2023 regular meeting?
Also move.
Special. Second.
Special meeting, I'm sorry.
Also.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
So it was two meetings, regular meeting October 16th and also the special meeting October 25th. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 44?
So moved.
So move.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Kolpak. Aye. Strand.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. We have, surprisingly, maybe because of the snow, no speakers tonight, so we will go down to item 53, updated massage therapy establishment program. Grant Larson to explain. Then Tom Knockloose, if you're ready for the next one, we could maybe move that too.
Good evening, Mayor, Commission. Grant Larson, Bill Affield. We'll give you an update on the massage therapy establishment program. For those of you, just give you a program history real quickly. I'm not going to read every one of these, but this program's been in the works since January of 20. The official program passed the Commission in November of 21, and then we implemented the program in 22. Since then, we've had a couple of changes to the annual license, or just one change, split the fee over 2 years, And then this year we conducted an industry input session in September to get their feedback to see how the program was doing. So that's what we kind of propose. We're giving you that update tonight, along with a couple proposed ordinance and resolution and fee revisions based on that input. Just purpose and intent of the program. Essentially, we looked into this as a city, and the North Dakota Board of Massage Therapy, on their website, they refer interested parties who want to start an establishment to local jurisdictions for ordinances and guidelines. So at the time when we looked into this, we didn't have any ordinance or guidelines for this type of program. And so, like I said, we didn't have it, so we brought it to the commission and we proposed the information, and then it was passed, and we implemented the program on January 1st of 2022. The purpose of the local requirements for the massage therapy establishments is to provide the city with legal means to ensure health, safety, and welfare of the community, as well as address any issues or concerns associated with unlicensed therapists or establishments. This is what I gave to the commission in November of 20, just to show the differences between the board and what we propose, which is now passed. The board license regulates individual-only therapists. City of Fargo now regulates massage therapy establishments. The board only has the ability to take action against individuals, not establishments. Very limited authority and jurisdiction over unlicensed individuals. We now can take administrative action against licensed establishments as well as unlicensed individuals. They conduct randomized inspections of 10% of the individual licensed massage therapists. We conduct annual inspections, 100% of all licensed massage establishments that we have. They also do inspections in homes. They do 10% randomized. We do not do any in-home or residential settings. Those are regulated by the Land Development Code. The board refers any concerns or complaints associated with illicit activity to local law enforcement. Our program allows local law enforcement. We provide the requirements, and it's a legal means to address illicit activity within the city of Fargo. Any questions on that? I just wanted to highlight those points. Okay. Current status. So after we implement this, to date, we have 100 individual licensed massage therapy establishment owners. Those are in 20 different locations. So essentially, obviously, you have a lot of facilities that have people underneath them. And I'm going to talk about how we propose, after their industry input, maybe we could do a better way of being more efficient on their licensing. But like I talked about too in the background, in May of 22, we did propose, I proposed it. The initial annual fee was set at $100, and we heard a lot of feedback on that. So what we did was we split that into $50 a year, 50 for 22 and 50 for 23. And that's what we're proposing going forward. So tonight, we have some proposed ordinance revisions, and tonight they're just doing receive and file. There's no first reading. But in the ordinance revisions, there's two things. What we'd like to do is include a background check for the owners that haven't gone through the board program. If I'm licensed to the Board of Massage Therapy, there's an extensive federal and a big background search and check that goes through the state. So then what we're doing is we're not requiring myself. Now, if Bill wanted to start an establishment and he didn't have that board certification, then he'd do the local background check. That's what we're including in the proposed revisions. We also want to increase the violations from an infraction to Class B misdemeanor. We've heard from the industry, if there's illegal illicit activity, let's ratchet it up so that this doesn't become a continued issue, and that this will put more teeth into the program. As far as the program requirement, they're in resolution tonight along with the fee. What we did is we just cleaned it up, the verbiage, and we really focused on just the sanitation of a facility. We're no longer looking at anything as far as how they do their procedures in that environment and within that establishment. That's left up to the board. So we just cleaned that up a little bit. as well as the background investigation, as you can see, if that was needed to be obviously done by the Fargo PD. And then the license application revisions. And as I pointed out, we have 100 right now throughout 20 different facilities. And so what we're trying to do is, and we heard the industry, we want to provide more efficiency for the licensing. So what we'd like to do here, the proposed business licensing options for them. So if I own an establishment, I have staff, the liability and the fee would fall on me. So that's the basic one, or the most routine. If I own a facility or I'm leasing a facility and I rent it out to other massage therapists, I can get licensed and then be held liable for those people or those renters that are underneath me performing massage therapy. A shared establishment, this one's a little bit trickier because this might have common licensed massage therapists that share a facility. So what we're saying is if one of them wants to step up and say, I assume responsibility for this establishment, then we wouldn't license the other one. If nobody wants to step up and there's 7 of them that use the same room, we're gonna have to individually license each one of them. That's how we're coming to these, the 100, because a lot of them have rooms like this. And so what we're saying is if I'm on the lease and then I sublease to him, if I wanna say I'll assume the liability and sign our liability clause, then the other ones can just fall under their license. And then it's sole ownership. So that's obviously if it's just one LMT that owns a massage establishment, that owner will pay $50 a year and be held liable. So once again, we're given these options because we hear a lot of it. They all share the same room. They're doing the same thing, and you're looking for the same thing in the inspection. So we're listening to them saying, we hear you, but we have to have liability, so somebody's got to be that owner, or that liability. So these are the options that we proposed to them after getting that industry input along with the $50 fee. And so that's what we're putting in front of you today is that change. That wraps up from my end of the update. If you don't have any questions for me, I'll turn over to Captain Hatfield.
Mr. Strand, any questions?
At this point, Mayor, I'll wait till after the law enforcement report.
Thank you.
If you want to just put the bullet points up there. So really, what we're looking at from the Fargo Police Department, we're in a support role to environmental health or public health on this. And one of the additions to the ordinance are by way of background checks. And that background check is going to be a local check. It's done similarly to when we do alcohol license checks. So when someone applies for a new alcohol license, our agency does a local background check just to make sure that they meet all the requirements that the city would want them to have that license. We would do the same for licensed massage therapy establishments. And so background check, if the ordinance is accepted, that is something that we would assume through the Criminal Investigations Division of the Fargo Police Department. Then the next one, if you want to.
Yep.
One thing to add, only conducted at the time of the initial license. So this is going to be a yearly thing. This would be, if they haven't done that background check with the state, if someone's coming in to get a license through the city for the massage therapy establishment, we would then conduct those background checks. If the license is revoked, the license, they can't reapply. So they won't have a ability to reapply, and we won't be doing another background check on them. So the next portion that we'd be looking at is non-compliance with licensing. So if Grant and his team go in and they find someone who's not licensed, that would, if this ordinance is accepted, be a misdemeanor violation. There's probably going to be multiple steps before it comes to an enforcement action. They're going to ask them multiple times to come in compliance. But if not, the teeth of this ordinance would be that this is a misdemeanor offense that we could either forward a complaint to the city attorney or take enforcement action on at that time. And so we would not be coming along on every one of these checks. Grant and his team would be going through doing these compliance checks to make sure everybody is in compliance. But if there is some criminal aspect found, we would then either take enforcement action or definitely investigate that. And then the third part of this is this: if Grant and his team finds that there's some type of illicit activity beyond noncompliance with licensing, maybe some type of human trafficking or something like that going on, an investigation would be initiated by the Criminal Investigations Division. And what we're going to be doing in the division is providing a liaison to his team to not only provide information, but also take any of those complaints if something were to be found. An important thing to highlight here is that through Grant's team's compliance checks here, we haven't had any indication that there's any illegal or illicit activity going on in any of the 100 establishments that are licensed, and we've received no complaints outside of that at the police department recently or to date. So these are the three roles that we would play if this ordinance were to be passed or accepted or made into to law. So any questions on that?
Any questions? Mr.
Mayor,
Strand?
I would like to, yes, I would. You know, the whole premise for this evolving in the first place, and I'll remind folks, there was quite an intense debate within the industry that some didn't want it at all, some did. But the whole premise for it was to manage and curb human trafficking. And if we're hearing there are no instances of human trafficking, what was the purpose of this?
I think that goes back to the purpose I talked about for well-being in the community, and this is a tool in our toolbox. And so if there are legal ones that know that this is in place, they're not going to get licensed within the city of Fargo. And this provides a means to the police department to go in there as well and check their facilities.
And I'll finish here, but I understand that I was opposed way back when, and I was opposed when I heard the objections from the folks in the industry. And then now we're stepping up stepping up the infractions to misdemeanors. Of course, we know there's human trafficking out there. I think it was wrongly directed at this professional industry. The massage therapists, licensed massage therapists, were not and are not conducting and perpetrating human trafficking. And I don't want us to think this is a solution to something, because the human trafficking is still out there and it's not in this lane of people and professionals.
Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Kolpak,
Aye.
Strand,
No.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Public input opportunities. Item 46, vacation plat portions 3rd Avenue North and 3rd Street North, North Dakota, R1 Urban Renewal Edition, and approval recommended by the Planning Commission. Donald Crest to explain.
Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Kress of the Department of Planning and Development. Our one item here from the Planning Department is vacation of right-of-way. The subject property is located right here, actually. So here's City Hall, here is 3rd Street, the library, and here is 3rd Avenue and the entrance to the city parking garage. There's a close-up here. As you see, this right-of-way runs through City Hall. So this was not vacated at the time that the new City Hall was built. Just a visual here, I think we're all familiar here, but this is looking up 3rd Street north here, City Hall, and then the condominiums behind it, the library here. And then this is on the north side here, we're looking along 3rd Avenue. Here's the adjacent condominiums in the city, to the city parking garage. And then there's a city parking lot here too. And then the zoning here is all DMU, downtown mixed use. The vacation plat here north is to your left, Commissioners. Vacation plat shows the area to be vacated. You aren't going to notice any difference standing out there. Going back to the photograph here, this street will stay here. The library will still be here. Obviously, the access to the parking lot will still be here. It's just the right-of-way will be formally vacated, and the city, goes to this. The property goes to the city. Here, this properties or this right-of-way would be vacated by statute. Half would go to either property owner, so the city would get half, and these two adjacent owners here would get half. But as included in your packet, city staff has already negotiated agreements with those property owners to quit claim their interest to the city. So once all the documents are recorded, the city will own the entire property in there, and we are going to provide an easement to City Center Condo Association as depicted here. This is an item included in your packet, so they can maintain their buildings. They can just get in there and work and and do whatever they need on the side of their building. And approval of that easement document prepared by the city attorney's office is included in the approval motion for this project. This is a city-initiated vacation in cooperation with the adjacent property owners, Northland Hospitality LLC and City Center Lofts Association. We appreciate their cooperation on this. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. City staff is here, myself and Tom Notgoose, if you have any questions regarding this matter. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, Commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this vacation? Anybody present want to speak? I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Kolpak,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Item 47, hearing on dangerous building located at 1710 First Avenue South. Sean Rodnick to explain.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Just to start this one off, there is a incomplete inspection notice that is in the packet that shouldn't have been in there. It was accidentally included. Commissioner Preston brought it to my attention earlier today. This is for the property at 1710 First Avenue South. It's a 1,636 square foot, 2-story wood frame structure, and it was built in 1898. The owner is Jamie S. Swanson, and the taxes are current. The damage to the structure, it has a lot of horizontal cracking on the foundation on the east side, and the foundation is caving into the basement. Lower level has significant water damage. There's water damage in the cavities on the other levels. The main level damage is damaged from animal and garbage accumulation. Upper level has water damage and ceiling to the ceiling of the bathroom. There's roof damage, unstable wall in the upper level that is pushing into the bathroom. There's water damage on the floor in the upper level in the bathroom. Gaps around the upper level door allowing outside elements into the structure. Electrical systems are compromised. There's excessive junk and garbage accumulation on the property. The exterior siding is damaged. There's missing siding and damage to the detached garage. And the detached garage is missing a weather barrier and is deteriorating. This appears to meet 10 out of the 10 criteria for the dangerous buildings. Here's a timeline of events. Now this one did come to our attention because of a routine rental inspection. And they were issued the conditions found statement on 5/9. We posted the notice of dangerous building on 6/1. On 9/8, the structure was cleared and secured by the city of Fargo. Now there's a 3-month gap in there, and the reason for that is we were trying to work with the owners to get things taken care of. On 9/14, the structure was cleared for a second time due to squatter activity and resecured. Then we had the request for public hearing, and the notice of the dangerous building order to show cause was posted on 10/18, and tonight we have the dangerous building commission hearing at commission. Here's the structure and some of the stuff. You can see in the garage that there's some elements that are damaged, but we're not asking for the garage to be removed at this time. Those elements have been taken care of for the most part, and it's not really that dangerous. It's the house that we're looking at. And although the house in some of these pictures doesn't look that bad, when you get to the inside, it gets pretty damaged. So here's some evidence of the squatter activity and garbage accumulation. And here we start seeing the inside. You can also see here that it was unsecured. There's just garbage and debris all over. This is the basement walls that are starting to cave in and are causing lots of issues. They have cracking and are posing foundation issues. There's water damage all over, improper plumbing, improper electrical, and it just continues on throughout the whole structure like that. On the one picture on the right there, you can see that there's a structural member that has been deteriorated to the point where I don't think it's really holding that much anymore. And the recommended motion is on your screen. I'll stand for questions.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this dangerous building? Is there anyone wanting to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Kolpak,
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Yes. Item 48, hearing of dangerous building located at 1208 South University Drive. Sean to explain as well.
Okay. Good evening again, Mayor and Commissioners. This is 1208 University Drive South. It's a 780 square foot single story wood frame structure. The structure was built in 1923 and the taxes are current. The description of damages are both the front and rear door. The stairs leading to them have exterior junk accumulation, limiting the means of egress. The weatherproof on all sides of the structure show damage and neglect, deterioration, and abandonment. The weatherproofing on the exterior roof is rotten and has failed on both the north and south facing extensions. Siding on the south facing wall is separated along the seam, and there are holes large enough to admit vermin. A weatherproof around the windows shows signs of rot and allow water and other elements into the structure. The chimney finish is cracked and crumbling. Homeowner has self-reported this home is filled with hoarded items, making it unsafe to occupy. Homeowner has also self-reported trespassing and squatters in the home and vandalism and theft from the property. There have been multiple junk vehicles on the property, junk accumulation in multiple areas of the yard, and the gutter system is overgrown with vegetation and non-functional. It appears to meet at least 9 of the 10 criteria for the dangerous building. And here's a timeline of events. On 8/23, we were alerted of the possible dangerous building and opened the investigation. On 8/30, the exterior inspection was done and the notice of violation was sent to the owner. On 9/15, a second notice was sent. On 9/16, we continued to monitor the property and tried to work with the owner to get property into compliance. 12/16 of 23, the family member contacted the office and tried to communicate with the homeowner on the process. We continued to monitor from 12/23 to 5/23. Some of that timeline there is due to some neighbors. They were not good neighbors. They were rentals, and they were not very nice to our inspectors. They were kind of violent towards them and belligerent. So we decided to keep our inspectors back off the property and just monitor for their own safety. On 5/31, he established contact with the social worker for the owner. On 7/27, we received competency results and conducted a new exterior inspection. She does have some hoarding problems and things like that, and we just wanted to make sure that she was competent and understood the process, and it was seen that she was. On 7/31, notice of dangerous building letter was sent and posted on the structure. 8/10, inactive due to aggressive neighbors once again. We did continue to monitor the property. On 10/18, we secured the exterior of the property. 10/16, we requested the public hearing at commission, and 10/30, we're having the public hearing. Here's some pictures of the home. You can see from these pictures that there is vegetation growing in the gutter system and the roof system has failed. There's large accumulation of junk around the property. You can see here where the siding is separated and also where the roof structure is compromised by the eaves, also the windows. Here is the chimney that I spoke about, and also you can see through the window that there's a large amount of accumulation of junk inside. And I do have 3 videos of the interior, short ones. These were taken by one of our inspectors as they were going through the home. The second one here is during a rain event, and you can clearly see water coming through. Now there's a portion of the building that is above this, so it's going through basically a story and a half to get here. And then this is just some more of the interior. And the recommended motion is on your screen. I'll stand for any questions.
Does anyone present wish to speak about this house? Does anyone present wish to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, and then I have a question.
Commissioner Preston.
So, Sean, can you just talk through a little bit when you have neighbors who are preventing you to get into a house? Is there some law enforcement
So the
issue?
homeowner did contact law enforcement and stuff. Unfortunately, law enforcement wasn't able to see any violations at that point. What they were doing is they were actually getting into our home and trying to take items. They were stealing things out of the yard and stuff like that. When our inspectors would go on site, they were very belligerent towards our inspectors, possibly violent. They have been thrown out of their property at that property now, and I do believe the owner of that property is going to put it up for sale. But as of right now, they're gone, so we felt comfortable moving forward with this.
Commissioner Pipcorn.
So it's just a follow-up to that. So can you have a police officer come with you when you're doing that? Or how will you do that in the future?
Typically, we do have police officers come with us when we secure the buildings, just to make sure nobody's in there and nobody's going to get crazy with us. But when we're doing our initial inspections and stuff like that, we don't have the police officers come with us. That's why we'll back off if there's some type of element there that's going to cause some problems. We'll communicate with the police department. We'll let them know what's going on, and if we do have to go over there, we do ask for an escort.
Just one more question. So let's say this person, like they had a hoarder issue. Do you refer them, or how does that go? If obviously sometimes they need some help, is that something that we do, or is that just a separate item?
We do have the Hoarding Coalition, and when we run into things like this, we try and pass information along. Now this homeowner and her sister are working together, and they're trying to find a contractor to come in and clean up the property, and then they would like to sell the property. So we're trying to work with them. We've given them some numbers of some different contractors and stuff in the city, trying to get them to move forward with this. It's not going to stop our process, and we made that clear to them, but we are trying to help with something. So if it is a hoarding situation, we usually try and forward it on to the Hoarding Coalition to see if they can help.
Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Colpack.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Item 49, application for Class FA alcoholic beverage license, El Agave Mexican Restaurant to be located at 2581 45th Street South. Continued from the regular meeting. Steve Sprague to explain.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. The applicant is looking to start a Mexican restaurant in the famous Dave's building. They've applied for an FA alcoholic beverage license. There were questions on the original application that the liquor board saw in September, and so we postponed the hearing until the liquor board could review and have the owner or the applicant present to answer the questions that came up. And we did that at the liquor board meeting in October. The questions that came up, the police chief had recommended denial due to a compliance check failure. And the liquor board wanted to hear how that happened. And what ended up happening was the applicant was helping somebody else at the restaurant, and that other person took the order. And so then the applicant then brought the alcohol out and placed it in the middle of the table, and then subsequently failed the compliance check. The liquor board did not feel that was substantive enough to deny the applicant from receiving this liquor license, and so with a unanimous vote, the liquor board forwards it to this body for a recommendation of approval.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak regarding this application? Take the speaker seat over there. Identify yourself and then make your comment.
My name is Jose Perez, and I'm the owner of the restaurant, El Agave.
You're allowed to say what you wanted to say.
Well, it's pretty much, what had happened that day. It was a complete, I take responsibility, but it was a complete mistake. I was actually helping somebody else. It was somebody else's table. He was really busy, and I came to ask him, "Do you need any help?" And he said, "Yeah, take this drink over there." And I went and took the drink, and that's how it happened. But I am conscious of these things, and these things won't happen again from my side. So now that I'm going to be an owner, I see the difference. I was a server at that time, and I worked my whole life for this. So it's been like 14 years in the works for this. So I got my building and I'm ready to open. I just need the liquor license.
Good. Looks like a good place.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak from the public? If not, I'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Preston?
So, I've been coughing, so I keep this off. If I would appreciate hearing a little bit from the chief in regards to the initial denial.
Good evening, Commissioners. Pretty much as Mr. Sprague has explained, that compliance check was, I believe, late fall of 2022, which I thought was close in time proximity. And again, I think it's an important issue that we need to take cognizance of. So that was my recommendation. But of course, the Liquor Control and the Commission are free to get input from the applicant himself, because I don't have that when I make my recommendations, and decide from there.
Could I do a
Preston?
So remind me again, in that case, is there an infraction or anything on the business side when a
Yes.
compliance check is failed?
Yes,
And also on the server side?
yes.
Okay.
Any other, Commissioner Preston?
So,
Excuse me,
Mr.
Commissioner
So,
Pipcorn.
Mr. Chair, part of the thing, this went through liquor control twice, and we had some communication issues. I would say that wasn't the only example. And so I think that's why we had them go back and clarify things, and Steve visited with them in person. The thing, this is the first time business ownership. And I think we asked the police department to be a liaison with them, because this is his first experience. So we have liaisons with some of the other bars that are very busy. But Officer Helmick was the one who was at our liquor control, and he said we'll do that to make sure, because there are some communications issues, and that was part of the questions. Some of those were misunderstood, I think, with Steve. And so I think this is. I think he learned from his mistake. Obviously, we don't want to have that happening, but I think that he's going to be an excellent business owner. I think that's what our city's all about, giving opportunities to people coming here. This is his dream, to own his own business, and so I think Steve and I and the Liquor Control Board were very comfortable after we talked to him, and we voted unanimously to give him a liquor license. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pipcorn.
Aye.
Colpack.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Thank you. Item 50, transfer of Class FA alcoholic beverage license from Prairie Pasta, Johnny Carino's, to Summit Nightclub, to Zero Restaurant Nightclub, to be located at 4554 7th Avenue South, continued from the 10-2 regular meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. And the applicant has already requested that we change the name from Cairo Restaurant and Nightclub to Cairo Restaurant and Bar, just to further clarify that it's not a nightclub setting. This is a bar and restaurant type of facility. Again, this license application came to the Liquor Control Board in September. The applicant at that time was not available, and so Liquor Control held it over to the October meeting. The reason the chief of police had recommended a denial due to some statements on the application that were not clear, and so I asked Heba to come to the Liquor Control Board, where she explained that she, due to a language situation, was not. It wasn't that she wasn't answering it truthfully. I think she just was not understanding what the questions were. And so after hearing her statements at Liquor Control Board, the Liquor Control Board did recommend approval of the license transfer from Johnny Carino's with a unanimous vote. And Heba is here also if you would like to speak to her too.
You know, Steve, in medicine, we have translators that kind of work with the patients who don't speak the language well. Do we have to start thinking about that? Seems two applicants here where we've had language issues.
We certainly can consider that as part of the application process.
And the other thing I wanted, curious about, so is the Summit nightclub, which had a liquor license, they're not purchasing that?
No, they are not. There's no relationship to the owners other than renting the building. The people that were running Summit Nightclub are keeping that license. They have future plans for that liquor license.
Okay. Is there any president wish to speak to this alcohol transfer? Anybody wishing to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, go ahead, Commissioner.
Commissioner Preston?
I just have a question. I would hate for us to be getting into circumstances like we just dealt with last week. So is there any kind of training that's available? Do other cities do any kind of training for new liquor license holders beyond server training? I'm thinking the overall management issues.
Well, we do not assist with management of liquor licenses. However, the conversations we've had both with Jose and with Heba, they fully understand that these are restaurants and that they need to sell, need to operate as a restaurant and sell alcohol being adjunct to their restaurant business, and so that their food sales must exceed their alcohol sales. And they both fully understand too that they must complete server training with all of the people involved in the stream of service of the alcohol.
So
Mr.
do you-
Pepcorn. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Preston, finish.
One more follow-up. So do you know of any other cities that have training that is available? For instance, making sure they have systems in place that everybody's had their server training and even the background check if they choose to do that.
I guess I can't speak for what other cities do.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, I will say, so the same thing as the previous one. We requested the liaison with the police department to do what Commissioner Preston talked about, to make sure proactively that they go in and make sure that we're following things. And I think Steve will go above and beyond it. But the cool thing is, this is what we are all about. So this is her dream, and I think the most awesome thing at Liquor Control, she got very emotional, and so that's why maybe she doesn't want to come up, and I understand that. But she has 6 sons, and this is her dream, and so to me, that's what our city's all about. And so I think this is a great thing. And to talk, Mayor, so it's not going to be at the Johnny Carino's location. It's the license from Johnny Carino's is going to that location. So maybe you can clarify that, Steve, that then that liquor license, they are going to use that someplace else. And can you talk about the time frame, what they have for that?
Yes, so Commissioner Pepcorn is exactly correct. It's the Johnny Carino's license, which they've been coming and asking for an extension, and trying to sell that license. That license was previously issued prior to 2014, and so is still available to be transferred. The other thing is that in this location where the Summit nightclub is primarily a residential area. And so to have a restaurant bar atmosphere up there in a residential area, I think is a much better fit than to have a nightclub or a bar. The applicant or the owners then of the license that was at Summit nightclub, as I indicated, they have a business concept in mind. Now, how quickly it'll come to fruition later on here, we're going to talk about a transfer of a license that it took them a couple of years to get that business concept in place. So I've been talking to the people that own the Summit nightclub building, and have that liquor license, and they have an interesting concept in mind, and so I think that within the next year or two, we'll see that come to fruition also.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Preston.
One more question. What are the hours of operation for this one?
I haven't talked to her about that. I don't know. Heba wants to get up and.
She's coming.
Okay.
You're making her not bashful.
Hi, my name is Hiba. The hour of operation is going to be from 9 for the restaurant to 12, and then a weekend to 2.
I'm sorry, what was the closing time?
Midnight.
9 to 12, and then on weekends she's open until 2, right?
Yes.
Very good.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Colpack?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 51, transfer Class ABH Limited Alcoholic Beverage License from KLP Lodging, doing business as American Inn, Fargo and Fargo Voyage Hotel, to be located at 4325 23rd Avenue North. Sprague to explain as well.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this one's a little bit more straightforward. These applicants have multiple licenses currently within the city. The American had a liquor license, but this group purchased the hotel at the time of license renewal, and at that time they wanted to just see how the business was operating. And now that they've been in business for a while and see how that business is operating, they want to add this manager special. So the ABH Limited is a manager special, so that they can give away the alcohol to hotel guests along with food that they may have. The other thing that they can do with that license is that they can offer it for off-sale consumption for their hotel guests. So like in a sundry shop or that type of thing. And those are the limits to what they can do with those licenses. There's also limits on the time that they can sell alcohol. It's a very limited amount of time.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this transfer of Class A license? ABH license limited? Anyone want to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
That's a move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Colpack?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Steve, are you tired yet? You want to do another one?
Oh, one to go.
Transfer and ownership change of Class A alcoholic beverage license from Irish Hospitality, doing business as Tennessee's Irish Pub, to Irish Hospitality, doing business as Double Down, to be located at 3165 33rd Street South, number 101.
So this is the license that I had referred to previously. The Hennessy's license was in operation for a short period of time. And then they closed but hung on to the license, have been requesting extensions for that license for quite some time. And then, things like COVID hit and different things like that. They finally did secure a location. The last few times that they've asked for that request of an extension of the license was due to the construction timeline taking longer than they thought. This is going to be located right next door to Red Savoy's. So I don't know if you know where that is, but it's just north of 32nd and just before the interstate. It's a great location for them, and so we're looking forward to having this open and operating. It does come with a recommendation of approval. There was only one small item on the background checks. One of the owners had a DUI from about 15 years ago.
Is anyone present who wishes to speak to this transfer? Anybody present wishing to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
That's a move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Steve, how many Irish pubs are allowed in the community? Just curious.
You can never have enough, can you, Mayor?
No, never can. Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Colpack?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Preston? Mahoney?
Aye.
And now, Mayor, if we could do that A down there,
Yep.
gaming site authorization, thank you.
Game set authorization for games chance for Fargo's Angels Hockey Club at Double Down. What is the question around it?
So the reason that is a separate item instead of included in your consent agenda is that the gaming licenses can't be issued until a liquor license is approved. And so we had to wait until the liquor license was approved, and now we can do the gaming license.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Kolpak,
Aye.
Mahoney,
Aye. We have an extra public hearing here and application filed by Dakota Airparts International for payment in lieu of tax exemption for a project located at 3600 39th Street South, which applicant used primarily for phase of growth through diversification into the Skorsky UH-60 Blackhawk helicopter platform. Jim Gilmer to explain.
This comes with a recommendation of approval from the Economic Development Incentives Committee. The location of this is south of the Flying J, probably about a half mile. What I'd like to have is Ryan Oshheim come up and tell us a little bit, or introduce the company. It is a 5-year property tax exemption on an existing building that was previously used by Solid Comfort.
Good evening. Ryan Ossheim with the Greater Fargo Moorhead Economic Development Corporation. I've been meeting with the founders and owners of Dakota Airparts for about 5 years now. And annually, we kind of do a discussion where they talk about considering expanding as their market grows and they get more entrenched in the markets that they're serving. They're a global company. Their supplier base, their customers are located all around the world. In fact, Barb, who is the CFO and one of the co-founders, just got back from South Korea. Her husband, Casey, who is CEO and also obviously a co-founder, I think he's in Dubai or somewhere in the Middle East right now doing business. So that's great for our community when we have new wealth generated globally. They've been around since 1994 when they incorporated, and they've been operating out of 25,000 square feet of space on the airport property. So they've got a building there that they operate out of. And they've got some a footprint that's larger than that, as they've got some warehousing and storage. So they're currently looking at this space as essentially tripling their footprint by adding 76,000 square feet. I'm sorry, 72,000 of square feet of space for them to expand and grow. The debate that they've kind of been going through annually is they operate out of Arizona as well. They've got a facility down there. So kind of the first decision to make is, do we expand? Do we make this huge investment, millions of dollars to grow our enterprise, to capture new market opportunity? And then the second part of that debate is, where do we do that at? So they've come to the decision after much deliberation and discussion about the partnership that they can enjoy from the community, and that's what brings us here today. And I'd like to invite up Sean Johnston, who's VP and General Manager out at Dakota Airparts, and Barb McCann, who's CFO and co-founder, just to tell you a little bit about what they do, what Dakota Airparts is, what they do in our market, and then about the project itself.
Thank you, Ryan. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, staff. My name is Sean Johnston, and as Ryan mentioned, I am the Vice President and the General Manager of Dakota Airparts. Along with me tonight is one of our co-founders and our CFO, Mrs. Barbara McCann. We're grateful for your consideration for Dakota's Airparts potential tax exemptions, which are vital for our sustained expansion of our enterprise. As Ryan mentioned, we were founded in 1994 in Corpus Christi, Texas, by Curtis and Barbara McCann. In 1997, they relocated the company to Fargo, and right after the flood, or right during the flood, I believe. And from there, we have continued to grow. We engage in the buying and selling of aircraft parts, turbine engines, whole aircraft, and parts, both for commercial and defense markets. We specialize a lot in older military aircraft, especially the UH-1 Huey, which is a classic helicopter you'll see in a lot of the Vietnam-era war movies. But that's not our only market that we serve. We supply parts for commercial and business jets as well as other helicopter platforms. The items that we supply range from hardware to parts and components like windshield wipers, windshield wiper motors, seat belts, seats, panels, basically everything that you need for the aircraft to put it all together, ranging up to larger components like the transmissions, whole turbine engines, even the whole aircraft. If you were to visit our hangar today in North Fargo, you'd see a number of UH-1 Hueys in there, mostly from the New Zealand Air Force. There's 10 of those sitting in the hangar, stuffed in pretty closely. And our markets for this is worldwide. We support defense militaries in multiple countries. We support governments as well. We support law enforcement operators. We support commercial operators, especially in the agricultural and firefighting businesses, even private individuals who have aircraft. We aim to basically provide a one-stop shop for operators and maintenance facilities looking for parts. We provide value add along with providing a source to find hard-to-find parts. Many of the components that are used in older aircraft can still be used on newer airframes, so we do the research to figure out what those parts are, have them refurbished, and put them back into the market. We're a primary sector business. We export about 60 to 70% of our sales to international customers. Domestically, we focus on areas of high concentration, especially on the West Coast and the southern United States, which accounts for about 30 to 40% of our revenues. North Dakota sales only account for about 1%, a little less than 1% of our actual sales. So the benefits are we're bringing a lot of new money into the state, especially from overseas, but also from the other parts of the US and Canada. Our model works pretty well because a lot of the operators and repair facilities that we work with do not stock a large number of parts on their shelves because this represents cost to them, and they try to minimize that cost particularly. Likewise, OEMs also minimize the amount of parts that they have available. They try to do predictions on how many parts a customer might need in the worldwide market, and they produce just enough to meet that need or a little bit under. This oftentimes results in long lead times and oftentimes almost impossible to obtain parts for operators and shops. Our model is the inverse. We believe in stocking a large number of inventory so that when someone needs a part or an item, we can supply it. As Ryan noted, we also have another facility and a sister company in Arizona, Air Services International. Basically, the reason we're here today is over the 30 years we've been in business, we've grown to become one of the world's largest suppliers of helicopter parts and logistics planning, maintenance planning, and support solutions. We've earned recognition from the United States Department of Commerce for achievement in exports. Our facilities we have over 50,000 square foot of warehousing currently and 138,000 line items of inventory. Our storage capacity has been a challenge for several years, where we've been running near max capacity in our warehousing. We have recently signed a major asset disposal contract with a foreign government that includes a package of up to 29 Sikorsky Black Hawk helicopters and associated inventory, tooling, ground support equipment, and other items. This package will require over 50 Conex containers, 40-foot shipping Conex containers to come back to the United States. And this process has now been started, and we're expecting it will occur over the next 12 months before we're completed. So this purchase will make will help to really diversify our markets by bringing us into the Black Hawk support, and will bring us a new customer base in both the US and abroad. But unfortunately, we need more space to accommodate all of these aircraft as well as the parts that go with them. Additionally, we expect that we'll be hiring additional staff to support this expansion. Roles will include aircraft and defense platform analysts, IT technicians, procurement specialists, aviation techs. There'll be many opportunities, especially for veterans who have experience on the Black Hawk platform, particularly retired Guard and active duty personnel who have experience with this platform. We have identified a facility in Fargo with 72,000 square feet of warehousing capacity with an additional 10,000 square feet earmarked for office space, emphasizing our commitment to job creation and growth. While we've been considering warehousing facilities in multiple markets, including Phoenix and the upper Midwest, many of which have logistical and labor advantages over Fargo, Fargo has remained our preferred option given the company's long-standing history here. The city of Fargo has been a pivotal partner in our company's journey since relocating from Corpus Christi, Texas. We are hopeful the city will continue in its support and approve this request. Thank you for your time. If there's any questions, we'd be happy to address those.
Thank you very much for giving us that history. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Usually this is where you say North Dakota is the greatest place to be, and Arizona didn't win out on this one.
Trust me, we prefer to stay in North Dakota. We prefer to expand here. Our workforce here has been instrumental in our growth. The city has helped us. We have nothing but good things to say about North Dakota, but we are a global company. We can relocate and expand elsewhere. We will keep our current properties that we have, and we don't foresee selling any of them currently. Hangar properties are hard to come by, so I'm sure we'll keep that for the long term. But we do want to stay in North Dakota and expand here. I'm not going to lie, the job market as far as workforce has been difficult since COVID. But the people here are wonderful, and we want to
And
stay in North Dakota.
Commissioner Stan, maybe you're not be able to see it, but your average salary you're starting is $22 an hour, so that's nice to see. And you'll still be paying your taxes on your land that you have, buildings that you have. The other thing is that Jim Gilmore has these calculators that we do as a commission that not all the public sees. I don't know if you can put that up there, Jim, but calculator should be over 100. You're 107 starting out year one, and you go up to 142 in year three. So that's a very positive thing for the city over a 5-year tax exemption. That actually means you're with your jobs and what you're doing in our market, it really helps us out. So that's excellent. Is there any other public discussion, Jim?
No, again, they're at the Fargo Airport now. They'd be expanding to this. Initially, it'd be 7 jobs, and then there'd be an additional 9 jobs in 3 years. And the committee looks a lot at what's the 3-year growth versus that immediate short term, because really we're looking for long-term jobs.
Any questions? Mr. Preston?
So your current location is at that 14 or 1825 23rd Street?
That's correct.
Okay.
That is the headquarters building, yes.
And I apologize not having seen this earlier, but so what's the expansion, the actual physical expansion of the plant or of the warehouse?
There is a large warehouse and office building available for purchase in South Fargo, 72,200 square feet. And we need it to accommodate this large inventory that will be hitting our shores and hopefully North Dakota soon from the overseas government that we received the tender and won the tender on the Black Hawk material. So we need to purchase additional space. There's additional land for future expansion, which is important to us because we do continue to grow, and that property meets our needs fully.
I think right now they're in a relatively small hangar at the airport.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Pepcorn, you were next.
Just a couple quick things. First of all, the last one where there's a business incentive agreement, that's a very good thing. So now everything is in black and white, the number of jobs that they're committing to, the tax incentive. And so that's a good thing that they're signing. And so they're on the record making that commitment. But then the other thing is the EDC, then they will track the jobs. There's been concern about that. How are we going to do that? And so Jim and the city will be working with the EDC to keep track of the number of jobs so they keep with their commitments. And so that was a concern. And so I think that's a good thing too. I don't know, Jim, if you want to talk about that, but that is a good thing.
Yeah, part of our agreement with the Greater Fargo Moorhead EDC is they'll stay in contact with Dakota Air Parts and other primary sector companies. We have a software system set up so the city can share that information and hopefully get reports annually on how the job creation is going.
Very good. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Strand?
No comments or questions.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Yes. Thank you very much for continuing to grow and having confidence in our community.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. We'll take a 5-minute break, come back at 6:10. Thank you. Seems like everybody's ready, and Jeremy Gordon's up at the stand ready to go here and get us going on the North Broadway Bridge feasibility study.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Good to be in front of you tonight. Just following up the last agenda item, we're going to go from air. Now we're going to go to land and sea. So this is just an informational update for you on the North Broadway Bridge replacement project. It was closed over 2 years ago. It has now been removed. So last year, you authorized us to go out and get quotes for consulting engineers to look at feasibility analysis to get down to the answer of can we build this or can't we build this. So we hired Houston in late spring, early summer. We wanted them to look at 6 things. We wanted them to look at the river and the hydraulics. We wanted to look at the environmental permitting. We wanted to look at road and bridge design. We wanted to look at traffic analysis, and then soil stability and the geotechnical, what's going on underneath, and then the benefit cost analysis. So they're nearing completion of the feasibility study. This is informational only. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll come to you with a whole new set of federal aid projects that we want to get in the queue in the out years. And then in 4 weeks, we'll return as to what you want to do with this project in particular. So with that, I'll hand it over to Jeremy, a couple Jeremys here at the podium. And he'll take it from here, go through the slideshow, ask questions whenever you want, and then we can wrap up at the end.
Very good.
Thanks. I would never think I've introduced myself as the shorter Jeremy, but yeah. Jeremy McLaughlin with Houston Engineering. I'm the project manager of this project. With me today is Steve Strack and Adam Rude from Houston. They did a lot of the technical analysis, so if you get really detailed with questions, I'm going to use them as my phone a friend here. Project timeline. Essentially, you've seen most of this or been involved with most of it. I just want to point out in 2023, Houston came on board about June. Is when we started working with the city engineering department. Obviously, today is where we're at, and as Jeremy mentioned, the 27th of November, we plan to come back with a formal recommendation. And if a build option is approved, that would be in year 2026. So what are the options that we're talking about here? I'll run over these briefly, and then I'm going to come back to these later with more detailed information. So I'll just talk about at a high level where we're at as far as which options. First of those would be option 1, which is replace the bridge at approximately the same elevation as what was just removed. And then we have option 2A, which is replace it at a higher elevation. And that would be with the bridge deck above the 37-foot elevation. That's post-diversion 100-year. And then that bridge would extend all the way down south towards Broadway. Option 2A, or option 2B, which is the same as 2A, except the bridge would touch down near the cul-de-sac at Royal Oaks Drive. And again, I'm going to show you an aerial of these, so don't get too caught up of just the verbiage. And then finally, option 3 is no bridge replacement. The traffic would be detoured permanently. So those are the 3 options, are essentially 4 options that we analyzed as part of this feasibility study. With any type of a project with longer bridges like this, the bridge typical section is very important. So we looked at what we need based on the traffic, a 40-foot clear width, that's 12-foot lanes with 8-foot shoulders, and an improvement over what was there previously is a 10-foot wide multi-use path, and that would provide connectivity over the river to the north side of the Red River over into Minnesota. And you can see that down in the lower right, essentially what that would look like. We have to spend a little bit of time just talking about the geotechnical or the soil stability issues out there. It was much more complex than what we had originally anticipated looking at this from a high level. And I'm going to talk about really 3 areas, one with the number 1 way on the right, which is north, and then 2 and 3, which are kind of lumped together. The black outline, that's the previous bridge that was removed. And that north end of that bridge where the yellow line is, that's a current failure plane in the embankment. And that was causing a lot of the problems with the old bridge. That entire embankment was moving, causing bridge instability, and that was creating issues. We had a sub-consultant, it's a geotechnical firm that did an analysis for us based on some information they had for the site. And basically what was determined is that we had to go to 110 feet to the north with the north abutment for a new bridge. And that's what we're referring to as a setback. And that's to get that structure out of that failure plane to try and improve the stability of a new bridge. But unfortunately, that means a longer bridge, which means more cost. One other item of significance here is because there's an active failure plane, the piers, especially the northern piers, depending on the bridge length that we'd use, would be in that failure zone. That's much more of a detailed analysis type situation that if an option's carried forward, you'd get into. So there's a level of complexity there. We didn't go into the detailed analysis of what that pier might look like, but I think we could I don't want to say easily, but we can get through that analysis and make sure that it would be an option that would be stable going forward. But again, there comes a cost to that in terms of construction dollars. The south end, I think most people are probably aware of what's going on down there, but there is an existing failure pretty much, where the 2 is extending down towards the number 3. And really that limits us on what we can do with this. We have to keep the road, if we're going to go on a similar alignment to what's there now, we have to keep the road at a very similar elevation, or we have to move the road west. And that limits what we can do for options and really what's available to us. So I thought it was important to at least highlight those because that's really a basis of how we look at these options and also what drives the costs. Hydraulic requirements, just because we're obviously in a hydraulic area that's got to be closely looked at. We have to achieve a no-rise situation with a bridge replacement. We're required to pass the current effective 100-year, and essentially we were able to design around that with the options that we're presenting. So the good news is that the options we're presenting here all meet that criteria of a no-rise. So there would essentially be no concerns getting that permit or that requirement met. Anytime you're crossing the Red River, we have a lot of different permits we're going to have to worry about. I'm not going to go through each of these, but essentially we're talking about North Dakota, Minnesota, and then core permits. So there's a lot of stuff to go through. We spent a fair amount of time talking and reaching out to these agencies and saying, here's the options we're looking at. And at this point, we're really fairly comfortable that there's no major concerns based on preliminary coordination with those agencies. So essentially we feel the options we're presenting here could get permitted if they should go ahead towards the design and construction. So with that, we'll maybe take a little deeper dive here into each of the options so you can kind of see what we're actually looking at. This is what we'd call option 1, which is the lower option. And the line in blue is what would be the proposed alignment. The gray dash, that's the existing roadway. And you can see that we're pushing that road to the west as you get on the south end, and that's really because of those geotechnical issues. And then you can see the proposed bridge on the right. Benefit here is there's no additional property impacts to the Royal Oaks neighborhood, but because this is a bridge at the existing elevation, obviously it's going to inundate. So during flooding, we're going to have a similar situation to what we do previously with the previous bridge before it was removed. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I just want to kind of give you a snapshot of what that bridge might look like. The dashed box in the lower part of that drawing is essentially the outline of the existing bridge. And you can see how much longer the new bridge is. It's about 500 feet, and it's also higher. The blue line is the 100-year event. So you can see that even during a 100-year event, we'd be underwater by just about 11 feet on the south end of the bridge. It is a little bit higher than what's out there now, but it still would overtop. And this is just a rendering of what that option would look like. Essentially similar to what's out there or was out there, but we did push a little bit west and straightened out the alignment for a little bit easier traffic flow. So that's option 1. And I didn't say it earlier, but if you do have any questions, certainly reach out or just mention them. Option 2A, which was the higher option, and this is the one that extends all the way south to Broadway. Now this is above the 100-year event. You can see that at the south end, we are pushing that alignment quite a ways west. And that's because of the amount of grade raise that we're doing to get that above the 100-year. Because of that amount of fill, we can't be close to the river or we'll continue those slides and continue the issues that we're having out there now. And you can also see the length of the bridge that's gonna result from that. Now, one of the results of that higher fill and moving the roadway west is that we're gonna have significant impacts to those property owners. Because of the amount of fill we're putting in their backyards, we're saying that would likely have to be acquisitions, that those properties would not be very usable because of the amount of fill. So that obviously is a fairly significant impact. But again, as with the other option, or with option 2A and 2B, they're both above the 100-year event. So we're high and dry during flooding situations. So just to give you a brief snapshot again of the bridge, this one is 1,100 feet, so more than double of what the lower option is. But you can see the size of the existing bridge in that lower view, and how much bigger this one is to pass the flood events. And then again, you can see the blue line is the 100-year event, so we're above that. And then this is a rendering of what that option would look like. You can see that the properties have been removed. You can even see the levee around the cul-de-sac at Royal Oaks and essentially the longer bridge. So you can see that how that alignment would essentially fit in the future. So then the the other high option is option 2B, which is similar to 2A, except for in this case it ties into Royal Oaks neighborhood. You can see that we have a curved bridge, and a curved bridge both vertically and horizontally, which adds costs. And the other real negative here is you're sending traffic, about 3,000 vehicles per day, through a neighborhood that was previously a dead-end cul-de-sac. So obviously that's a significant impact as well that would have to be worked through. And then the other thing that I mentioned is there's an existing levee and flood protection around the cul-de-sac, and we would work with that to maintain the integrity of that levee system and the flood protection. And like I mentioned, at 2A, you would be above the 100-year event and be essentially protected during flooding. And similar to the last one, this bridge is about 1,400 feet. So you can tell, the higher we go, the longer the bridge is getting, and we're above the blue line, which is the 100-year event. And then this is just the north end of that and how it kind of ties in. And then finally, this would be a rendering of what that would look like. So you can see a fairly significant bridge, and then it ties into the Royal Oaks neighborhood and then down to 37th Avenue. The last option, which is essentially do nothing. We say do nothing, but it's really a no build. In this case, we have about 3,000 vehicles or average daily traffic prior to the bridge closure. And the main bypass routes are University Drive, which are the red arrows, and then 10th Street. The problem with this is that the traffic volumes on 10th Street went from about 860 vehicles per day up to 1,670, so almost doubled bridge closure. So that's a fairly significant impact, to that residential area. So even if a no-build option was chosen, there'd be a recommendation to do traffic calming measures in there to either slow the speed or, more importantly, hopefully divert the traffic back over to University Drive to avoid impacts to that neighborhood. And the benefit cost analysis, which is going to be included as part of the final report. Some of the things that we'll look at is vehicle miles traveled, hours traveled, safety, greenhouse gas emissions, and then obviously the costs. You have initial costs, but we also have to look at bridge maintenance and road maintenance costs for the life of the expectancy, and then convert those back to present day values. And we are working on that. We're very close to having that wrapped up. As Jeremy said, we'll have a report to the city here shortly, and then back in front of the city on the 27th. So in order to kind of wrap this up, we put together a comparison, a lot of Christmas colors here, but essentially the green is favorable, yellow is moderate, red is poor, options going across the top, 1, 2A, 2B, and 3. And I'll kind of walk through each of these horizontally just to kind of tell you the basis behind them. The first is the vehicle and pedestrian mobility. With options 2A and 2B, we're above the 100-year, really no impacts to travel whatsoever. So those are both favorable. Option 1 is obviously an improvement for vehicular travel, but it does occasionally still flood similar to the old bridge. So that's a moderate. When you get into the geotechnical risk, the reason 2A is a red is just because of the amount of fill that's going in there and the proximity of the river. Until a detailed analysis is done, additional borings are done, there's really no certainty that will be exact. I mean, we feel pretty good about it, but obviously you got to get out there and do the actual design. So that one's a little bit worse, but in terms of the other ones, it's really a moderate, and we feel they can be mitigated with design. The hydraulic impacts are all green, and that's really because it's not because they're not important, but because we can design around them with the options we've chosen. We can size the bridge, the height of the bridge, so forth, to be able to get around those hydraulic impacts. even though they are significant, we can design around those. Property impacts, you'll notice option 2B as red, and that's because we're sending that traffic through a residential area. Obviously, that's a big impact to those folks. So that's why that's indicated as poor. And then there is still some impacts for the other two options. We'll have to look at potentially a noise study and some things like that. But again, we would anticipate those as moderate versus under the poor category. Property acquisition, fairly straightforward. The only one that requires acquisition is 2A. So that's why that gets a poor designation. The rest are all favorable. And then permitting is very similar to the hydraulic analysis. We've put it in as moderate, but we really feel that we can permit with any of the options. So there's always a risk there until you get to the final design, but we think we can get through those. Because you do have a teaming partner in Clay County, we put a Clay County preference in here. I want to be clear that they have indicated favorable for option 1, from my understanding, talking with the city, but they have not brought option 3 to their commission. So at this point, that's yellow just because they have not been made any formal recommendation regarding option 3. And then construction costs, I'm going to talk about those here in a little bit more detail, but the 2A and 2B are fairly significant, about double of what option 1 is. And then the BC analysis is coming. So we'll talk just about the estimated construction costs, fairly big numbers. You can see that option 1, we're looking at 15 to 17 of construction, 20 to 22 total. And option 2A is just about double that, as I mentioned, 37 to 39. And then when you get to 2B, you're looking at 46 to 48 total. Option 3 is no replacement, and the reason there's cost there is because we'd want to obliterate the road, permanent signing to indicate the road's closed, do the traffic calming as we talked about, so that's where those costs come from for option 3.
And you have federal money for 90%, you said?
I'll show you. So this next slide is the exact same thing I just showed as construction costs. But the way that breaks down is there's 5.4 million of STEBG funds that's been applied for, and those are taken off the city of Fargo portion. You'll notice there is some differences between the Clay County and city of Fargo portion, and the reason that isn't exactly the 5.4 is because more of the road costs and impacts are on the city of Fargo side than the Clay County side. So that's why they're a little bit different, and they're not strictly a 5.4 million difference. But you can see there it's roughly 8 to 9 million for option 1 for each entity, and then it goes up from there for each various option. So that's kind of how that breaks down. These are fairly close, but we're going to dial them in a little bit more as part of the final report, which will be coming here shortly. But these are fairly accurate estimate in terms of estimated costs. So with that, I would certainly entertain any other questions.
Any questions in the commission? Commissioner Pipcorn?
So if you don't mind, if we can go back to some of the maps, I have a couple of questions about the options. To me, what you're saying is for the higher bridge, basically when you connect to that neighborhood, both of those options you're going to have to remove or purchase buyout houses. Is that correct? Can we keep going back where it actually shows the neighborhood? And I guess here's my question: could we ever do the alignment? So basically, you have to buy the houses on the lower portion there. I would say at the bottom of the Royal Oaks Drive, is there 3 or 4 houses or maybe 5? So no matter what you do, you have to, because of elevation of things, those houses are probably not going to be there. Is that correct?
Only for option 2A.
Right.
We have to remove those houses because of the fill. Technically, this option that we're showing here, we would not have to remove those houses to make the design work. Whether or not they'd accept the traffic going through their yard is a different story.
Right. So I guess to me, what I look to see is for an option is to move the road further down where those houses would be bought out, and still keep the ones at the top above the road, and maybe have a service road or something like that, so they could remain in place. If that could be a possibility. I don't know if I'm describing myself like that, except maybe moving it a little bit. So anyway, I'm just throwing it out there because
He's saying they have to buy the houses out with 2A, Dave. So you would take, how many, 3 houses out?
I think it's 4.
I think there's a couple duplexes, so there's
Right.
6
Right.
Six.
property owners.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's if you don't mind having that at least be a possibility of an option. Because the key thing I believe is with our growth plan, North Fargo is part of the growth plan. Down the road, the potential for growth is in North Fargo as South Fargo, and so I think we have to be looking at not just right now, but also for the future. And I guess that's my main thing. And I do think that the funding. We have also talked about the diversion be a potential funding source, some part of that down the road, and so I hope we look at that. So that's my comments, but I think it's critical that this arterial remain in place, and we can't have this traffic going through a neighborhood. I think that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Kolpak.
Yeah, as part of the final decision-making process, will we be re-soliciting for public input and comments on the final decisions that are going to be made available and get feedback?
We hadn't planned on it, but we can in the next number of weeks.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful to hear from the residents on this project.
And we did get that a year and a half ago, but
Right.
we could re-solicit.
Thank you.
They've had a year to live with it. Maybe they have a different
Right.
opinion. Commissioner Preston.
Could you go back to the option 3 alignment?
Option 3 is do
There we
nothing.
go. So you talked here about rerouting the rerouting the traffic to 10th Street. Am I understanding that correctly?
No, so once the bridge was closed, the traffic
Is going
now
on
is
10th
using
Street.
University and 10th Street, and the traffic on 10th Street has essentially doubled since that bridge has been closed.
So my question is, and if you took a look at straightening out, I guess it's 36 that goes into 37th, and then making it difficult for people to take 10th Street so that they're pushed out to University, there'd be less impact on that neighborhood, it seems to me.
Yeah, and I will say that as part of the report, we're looking at various different options in terms of traffic calming to dissuade folks from using that road more so than slowing them down. So there's a number of things that we've looked at, and certainly I think that's part of it is looking at that intersection. So certainly it'll be part of that analysis.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Could you go back to the cost analysis when you have all the projects up to the 49,000? Yeah, there.
This one?
Yep. So the cost for us is either as a city of Fargo, 8 million, which minus is 5.4, right, Jeremy? You get to minus the 5.4, Phil?
Yeah, from 20. Well, go to the bottom 3.
Yeah. So when I see city partial portion to up to 8.2, do I get to minus the 5.4?
No.
No, I don't. Okay. So the difference city is 8 million versus 16 to 20 million. Diversion would not, because of contingency issues, Commissioner Pepcorn, necessarily pay the bulk of this price. We could go and ask them, but there are many entities that have come to that. And I don't know the ruling, Jeremy, but it was never in the plan as part of the diversion to replace Broadway. They had no part of that. So you'd have to solicit for them for that question. The real question I think has to be asked is if you could take the 5.4 million and put it into 12th Avenue Bridge, which goes out at 28 feet, that has how many thousand cars a day?
Right around 12 to 13,000.
12 to 13,000, and that would have a flood-proof bridge that could go in, minimal impact to the neighborhood, and could get us a lot more bang for our buck if we did that, and or if we try to find under infrastructure funding, because that could qualify for some infrastructure funding from the feds at some point, or might be helpful more than the 5.4. But it's something to think about, so I'll wait till the final. Today, all we're getting is information. We're making no choices, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions, Commissioner
One more
Preston?
question. So,
I'll ask you next, John.
oh, sorry. So with and I have not had a chance to look at your CIP, the information that was sent to us, but are you projecting this in the next 3 or 4 years?
As it sits today, it's in 2026.
Okay. So in the
So it would be in the 4-year CIP, our city's 4-year CIP.
Careful, Tom's coming behind you, Jeremy. Do you want to modify that, Jeremy, or Tom?
No, his answer on year was correct.
part of the issue we have is funding of the local share. I think when I originally put together the CIP, I think we were estimating right around a $10.5 million bridge. As we've dug into it more, understand the slope stability issues on the north side, the bridge expands, the cost increased. So I think right now, I think we have a few million in city funds planned for this project. But if we get into that 7 to 8 or higher, we certainly have to have a really serious conversation on how we fund our local share.
Mr. Strand.
Thank you, Mayor and Mr. Chairman. Here's what I am trying to get my arms around informationally. Going back over to the diversion authority and the flood protection and that whole entire view and project, what I don't know, I wasn't around when we established essential basic policies for setbacks, for rebuilding in flood zones, for building at all or not in floodways. I would like to know what the existing established policies in place with the diversion are, so we can compare that and contrast it with all of these options.
Jeremy, do you know the answer? One of the Jeremys?
I'm not quite sure I heard a question.
Well, he's really wondering whether the diversion have any rules that you couldn't replace Broadway Bridge at the present level because it's in a floodplain. And you gave Jeremy, when we talked this other day, there's an answer to you do build bridges and they flood.
Yeah, difference between structures you live in and road and bridge infrastructures. The road and bridge is built to live in that environment. Buildings are meant to keep the water out, and you build moats around it to do whatever you need to, levees.
So frequently there are bridges built throughout the nation that flood, and they don't break any rules.
Correct. The biggest thing is the environmental permitting and the hydraulics.
Yeah, and specifically, I think related to the diversion, we have to pass that no rise certification, and the more bridge you put in the water, the bigger the obstruction. So you have to just design around that and mitigate that. We've been in close contact with the state to talk through that beforehand to say, hey, if we get to this point, is this going to be permittable? And we feel very confident that it would be.
John, does that answer your question?
It does to a degree. I would still like to know from the diversion authority's perspective what their established policies are with regards to setbacks and heights and rebuilding and so on. I'm guessing there were some policies put in place back when.
We can get Nathan engaged in that question and get back to you when you do your final report.
I think that sounds good. The diversion isn't going to be the controlling entity on the river. It'll be the states and the Corps.
And I'll just wrap up with that. It isn't so much that it's the diversion as a deciding authority. I don't want us to have multiple different standards. If we're requiring other entities to adhere to these policies, I think we need to too, as much as we can.
John, on one side, I talk about permitting for the Corps. We'd have to get permitting from the Corps, so that answers that question. And we can't break rules. I mean, the Corps says you can't break the rule. You can't break the rule. Tom, did you want to comment?
Yeah, just one thing. Part of what we looked at, we did somewhat have this conversation, and really, I think what Commissioner Strand is talking about is the floodway. And so, looking up and down the Red River, our other bridges across our metro area, every one of them has structures within the floodway. There really is no economical way to build a bridge across the Red River or probably many other rivers without building within the floodway. And so it is allowed within our ordinance. It would be permittable by both the state of North Dakota, Minnesota, and the Corps.
Better clarity, John?
It is. Thank you.
Mr. Preston.
Just a quick question. I see the lanes that you've projected for the bridge is 12 feet. We've done a little bit of road dieting going on. Is there a reason they're 12 feet and that's something narrower?
Yeah, let me get this. You're talking about the 12 foot and the 8 foot.
specifically the 12-foot for
Yeah, and
driving lane.
typically these are state recommendations based on the ADT because we are dealing with Minnesota as well. So this would be a common typical section for this volume of traffic based on AASHTO and other government codes. I think if you wanted to go to 11-foot lanes, that's something we could entertain. Is it going to be a big needle mover in the overall cost? Probably not.
One other thing I think needs to be talked about, this is a shared cost bridge, right? So if Minnesota doesn't like the more expensive bridge, the $40 million, and say, we'll just go with the $20 million, what do we do in that situation?
I think that's a really good question.
I mean, because then you would be asking us as a state to be paying their share they don't pay, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the fears I've had all along on this project, I think, is that City of Fargo and Clay County could have different opinions on what they want to build for their willingness to pay for the project.
And isn't most of the benefit from Minnesota residents? I mean, a lot of the traffic is coming to Fargo to work. As I understand, 60% of the population in Minnesota comes over to North Dakota. When we talk about connectivity for the North Siders, there's not a lot of traffic from our residents going. There's no shops or anything on the north side, is there?
Yeah, I don't know that we've looked at any streetlight data or anything like that to understand where origination and destination trips are happening. But if that's important to your decision, we certainly could.
Could Commissioner Kolpak's question, or let's ask the residents, but let's see where they're coming from. Who's using the bridge most of the time? Might be helpful.
I do think as part of the benefit cost analysis, we are going to have some of that data from the traffic demand model. There'll be some information from that, right, Steve?
So
yeah, so I think we can provide some.
So Steve, if it shows Minnesota gets more benefit, then they pay more. Is that how it works? Oh no, okay. I'm just curious. Any other discussion?
So maybe I do just have a question because I want to be sure we're providing the information that the commission is expecting here in 4 weeks. Is it my understanding you would like us to go out for public input on what the preference is?
Mr. Chairman, only if you also include the cost information with it.
So
I think that would be very important.
That leads up to my follow-up question. Again, understanding where the funding is, what we have programmed for federal funds, what we probably the shortfall that we would have in what we have allocated for city funds. Would the city commission be supportive of special assessing a portion of these costs for bridge replacement?
Special assessment would be north side or just where you say where you're driving from?
We would have to find that benefiting area. We would have to define that, but because I think it is important to residents' input, I think to understand whether they would be asked to pay special assessments for improvements is really important if we're going to ask for their input.
I think you should ask that question. Yeah. And I think also when you're talking about costs, is you might want to give a little idea how much that is. Is that $2,000 over 25 years, or is that $5,000 over 25 years? I might not just say, would you pay for it with specials, but might include that. Because it does have an impact on our CIP, right?
Correct.
If you basically have 5.4 from feds and maybe you're 2 million from us right now, but our 80 million, 90 million CIP, that would affect, we may have to take 5 to 7 million out of that, right?
Correct.
Unless you did specials. Yeah.
Correct.
One follow-up question.
Commissioner Preston?
So is it possible to even special assess on the Clay County side?
We would not have the authority to do so.
Do they have the ability to do that? Do you know?
I don't know that they can.
Okay.
Talking to Clay County, Kevin Campbell, what happens is there's a special bonding bridge type of thing you put in for, and again, they're under the state to help fund their portion. So there's no local cash that goes in. Commissioner Pepcorn.
So, Mr. Chairman, my question is, have we special assessed any other bridges, any other neighborhoods, any other people?
Yes, we do have criteria within our infrastructure funding policy for new and replacement bridges, and it's capped by a square footage to the benefiting area. So to the question of what would it generate, we'd have to define the benefiting area first, and then see what would be generated through that special assessment district.
But have we done it in the past?
Yes.
Do you know which bridges we've special assessed?
So I can speak to new bridges for sure, right? Recently, we just did 64th Avenue. That's a project that we discussed.
Okay.
I would have to look into that, Commissioner Pepcorn, on whether we have for replacement bridges.
I think that's a good question, Commissioner Pipcorn, because who benefits? That's a hard part to figure out who would benefit from it. It's easier on the 64th because you're a certain distance, I think, from the bridge. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 55, recommend to authorize staff to publish a request for proposals for the City of Fargo Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project. Troy Hall and Steve Sprague to explain.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'd just like to take this opportunity to present a project that we're working on as a team. As if we needed another acronym, AMI stands for Advanced Metering Infrastructure. And what this project will do is more modernize our metering system, and it'll automate the meter reading part of it, so we have access to better data. This project, it's a collaboration between several departments. It's water utility, public works, auditors, finance, and others working as a team. Tonight we're just asking for permission to advertise a request for proposals, but thought we would just show you what the project's about to kind of let you know what's coming down the pipe. So from an outline, talk about water utility strategic plan, how AMI works, current state of water metering, benefits of AMI, and then funding approach and financial considerations. So with this, it's a big project for Fargo, so we thought we would not only tell you what AMI is about, but just kind of show you how it fits in the planning for the water utility and how it's funded. And then this from a funding approach, the state, we're working with the state on the funding for the project. They consider it a water conservation project, so this will be a little bit different path as far as funding the project. So AMI has been our radar for quite a while. We've had some other projects that we've been working on a priority basis. Just talk about that a little bit, but the Red River Valley Water Supply Project, very important for drought. That's gained a lot of traction now, is under construction, getting funding at the state level and looking at federal funding for the project. So that's good. One of the things the water utility has been working on is how do we get water from the Cheyenne River to our water treatment plants, and we're making some headway there. Another one that we worked on is the membrane water treatment plant. That was really prompted by Devil's Lake releasing into the Cheyenne River stream, making the water more salty, so we had to move on that. That also set up really well for regional service when West Fargo came online, because the plant takes from starting the planning and testing process to water going out to customers was about 10 years. So it took a while, but it really positioned us well for West Fargo. The other one, another one, regional service. We're now a regional provider to Cass Rural and West Fargo are regional customers. We get them a good water supply, but it also, and I'm going to show that in a little bit, but it helps the Fargo residents' water rates because we spread out some of the treatment costs, and we spread out paying for capital projects. And then the other one we've been working on is water treatment plant and pump station reliability improvements. So our lime softening plant, our older plant, is about 25 years old, so we've been working on that a little bit, or quite extensively, to fix that up for the future. And then with regional service, that pushed our pump station capacities to the upper end, so we had to work on that a bit. So AMI, we actually did there was actually a feasibility study done in 2010. That was before my time in Fargo, but now we're really ready to move on the AMI. So that gives you a little flavor for some of the projects we've been doing. This one I'm not going to go over in detail, but this just shows kind of a timeline of some of the planning and projects we've been doing. It goes from about the past 20 years, goes through different years from 2002 to 2010, 2011 to 17, 2018 to present, and then into the future. And just AMI is next really on the radar screen. And what following this plan has really helped us improve our infrastructure in a number of ways. It's really helped to have the city commission past and present support for our projects. And one of the things like on the fire trucks for fire department, they display the ISO class 1 designation. That was, water system was an important part of that. The other thing, it's hard to read, but on the very top right there, the water utility has been successful in getting about $55 million in grant funding for their projects, which helps with water rates, and having the planning has helped us position for that as well. And then with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve for a few slides to kind of talk about what AMI is.
Well, AMI is a way to collect the data that we need to do the water billing. And currently, what we're doing is we have about 30,000 water utility accounts that we collect the monthly usage on. We have 3 meter readers that go around to the houses, and they have to walk up right to the house physically and do a touchpad and touch on the house. We have to do that on 20,000 of our accounts. We have about 10,000 that we do a drive-by, and as they drive by with the car, the computer automatically collects the data. By moving to AMI, what we would do is go to a communication system. We would locate antenna on our water towers, and the system would automatically be communicating with that water tower, and then the water tower with downtown would communicate to downtown. And so by moving to AMI, I know there was a while back, a couple of months ago, Commissioner Preston got an email from a customer that said it was about a different topic, but they said, hey, the city of Fargo really needs to get with the 21st century. And that's what we're hoping to do with going to AMI. Next slide.
Oops. Yeah.
So the current state of the metering, again, we have 30,000 customers, and our meter sizes are anywhere from a 5/8 inch meter to a 12-inch meter. Through this process, we want to switch our smaller meters all to one size, so that most homes in the community are having the same meter that we would. It makes it easier to service and to monitor those meters. Troy has done some work through our consultant, and we are anticipating getting better data in our billing. And so we anticipate that we would see a 2% to a 10% savings through having a better monitoring of the water that's being used. So some of the benefits to the city of Fargo, we could see reduction in water loss. We'll be able to compare what the water plant is preparing or is manufacturing to what we're actually billing out. We can do those kind of comparisons. Some of these meters do allow us to operate remotely, and so if we have repeat customers that aren't paying their bills, we could sit at our desk at City Hall and do a turnoff. Now, if you just remember, we just did a utility assessment for unpaid utilities, and then one of the reasons that gotten so high was because we have the 4 meter staff that do all of the installs of the meters. That's the same 4 people that they had 25 years ago when I started with the city. The people have changed, but the number hasn't changed. And so when you think of the growth of the city and how the amount of work that they have out there, they're still doing the same work that they were doing before. Only that workload has increased, and so the amount that they can get done has decreased. And one of the things that they've always been responsible for at the meter staff is going out and turning off delinquent accounts. And so if we can alleviate that and we can do that at our desktop, the other thing is then we're not hindered by having to have people sit at home to say, that I'm here so they can come now and turn on my water, that type of thing. We can take care of that. A couple of things on the benefits to the customers. They will be able to to watch or to monitor their own usage and take control of their own account. There are apps that can show it right on their phone. I actually had one of my coworkers that was gone for a period of time this summer on vacation, and she lives in West Fargo, who has done this AMI conversion, and she got a continuous usage email or a text to her phone, and so she was able to contact somebody here and go over to her house, and sure enough, they had left their outdoor spigot on just a little, and it was trickling. So those are some of the things we would be able to, as utility billing staff, to run a report in the morning and see, these 16 customers had continuous usage overnight. We need to get a note out to them, either, it could be a letter or it could be a text or a phone call or some kind of way of communicating, maybe an email that says that, hey, you've got a problem in your system that needs to be addressed. And so if you remember back a couple of years ago, we had a gentleman that came to the city and said, hey, there's no way I could have used this much water. And that way we'd be able to get in front of some of those issues. So. And again, customers would have the ability to monitor either through an app, you can go on your computer or right to your phone and see exactly what's going on in real time. You can see that consumption and that usage.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And then I'll look at like the water utility benefits. This graphic is from 2021, and remember how dry it was. But through the summer, it shows from April to the end of August of 21, and we saw the river really slow down at that time. And with the AMI system, it helped us improve our drought efforts. It's not like coupled with like the Red River Valley Water Supply Project, but it'll help us in those situations. So with this one in 2021, we were within a couple weeks of actually calling for water out of Lake Ashtabula, which was kind of a scary time. And then unfortunately we got some rain with that. But during those times it was a real situation, and we realized during that, as we as a staff, like the water utility, we're staffed to keep operations going day by day, but we're really not staffed to monitor what's going on with automatic irrigation systems overnight and everything. So this would help us in the drought. So that's more the water utility benefit of it. And then getting into the funding approach, what water utility, it fits into our financial model and capital improvement plan. We maintain a financial model that has all our revenues, expenses, predicts or anticipates inflation, and then we have our capital projects plugged into it, and so we maintain that, and so we can maintain a good financial standing. With this AMI project, some good news, maybe good for me, it's maybe hard to describe here, but the state, they consider it a water conservation project, so they're steering us. A lot of times we do state revolving fund loans. You hear a lot about that, but we do state revolving funds loans. Usually on the drinking water side, we do drinking water loans, but in this case, they're recommending we go a clean water route, which is what water reclamation and solid waste they use. But very recently, they've changed the terms. This is within the past couple of months. So with the state revolving fund loans, when you do that, you get really good interest rates, but there's federal requirements that maybe add some project costs, but the interest rate's way out. But in this case, this is very recent, but they dropped some of the federal requirements that add costs. So it's like the best of both worlds. We're going to get better project costs and get good interest rates on the project. So that's really good news. And then we're always looking for other grant programs as well, because a good return on an investment when we spend the time doing that. Just about the project costs now, it's really a team, Steve and I and others. We're going to have some different options with the proposals depending, and we'll look at what's the best fit for the city cost and look at other considerations. And so multiple alternatives. So we really don't know with inflation exactly what it's going to cost, but we'll get the proposals to find out. But what Steve talked about, he showed the 2 to 10% range for understanding your water loss. 10% is probably that's probably optimistic, but I think 2%, that lower end is reasonable. So there, I'm not going to say it is, but there is it realistically the project could pay for itself with just by understanding the data better.
That's a really good slide, Troy.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. So and shows the payment and shows just the 2%, and so thank you. So just a little bit about our debt service and management strategy. We have so we are looking at a loan to do it, but the sales tax and rate revenue, they're a real stable source of repayment. And with water utility, our projects, they stand alone. We pay for our allocated rates, and then sales tax, we pay for the projects. A lot of the projects we do are multi-generation projects, so so when we do a loan, it spreads that cost over time and allows multiple generations to probably pay for it. And then we also don't have to front the cash, so it spreads it out. So it keeps our water rates down too, really helps out with that. So, for example, I came to the commission probably, it was about 5 years ago. We talked about the membrane plant loan. So the 1997 water plant loan dropped off, the membrane plant picked up. We did some restructuring of our debt at that time, but it turned out that the total annual debt service today for the water utility is about the same as it was back at that time, and the same as it was in 2010. So we're really stable on our annual debt service. The other thing, in the future, it's going to go up a bit, but it'll be very modest and sort of manageable. So just wanted to explain that it's, we model everything and we have a way to pay for the projects. Just one more slide. I wanted to just talk about water rates, because I know, a question be asked is, okay, we're doing this project, how's it going to affect our rates? Well, water rates in Fargo, we really focus on keeping our rates decent and reasonable for our people. And this is from a 2022 rate survey, but we're really in the lower 25th percentile regionally and also nationally, looking at a couple different surveys of where our water rates are at. And we have some strategies to do that. And this kind of shows that if without these strategies, we'd be more in the upper third of rates. So one of the really big things that helps us, the most prominent one, is sales tax. So that keeps our rates in check. It helps by about 30% or 29-30%. And then a good part about that is about 40% of the sales tax paid by visitors to Fargo. Another one is a grant, and that really does help our rates. So I mentioned a previous slide, we've been successful in about $55 million in grants over the past 11, 12 years. And the way I calculated this is if you avoided a debt payment on $55 million over 30 years, that's how much it would kind of benefit. Also, the regionalization helps. So we spread out our fixed costs for water treatment. They also help with some of the debt service. And then the last one is just water utility efficiency. So our staff has figured out ways to save money as well. So all in all, we see a pretty good haircut in our water rates just because of these strategies. And one of the things, just one last thing, and then I'll get to the last slide here, but unfortunately we're known a little bit nationally about how difficult our water is to treat in Fargo. So they see our water and they see how challenging it is, and that's why we have all the technology. So about a year ago, I was talking, EPA guy talked to me after a presentation, and he said, your water rates just got to be astronomical. They got to be off the charts. And they said, no, we just have these strategies to kind of keep them in check. So we really try hard for people's rates. And I just wanted to show you some of the things we do to try and manage those.
It's an excellent report, Troy, because a lot of people around River Valley Water Supply are paying $50, $60 a month, and that's the hard part for them to pay for emergency supply. And then when they see our rates, they just about to drop their eyeballs out because they can't believe we can keep them so low.
Okay.
So excellent work by your team.
Yep. So last slide, you have the recommended motion to just authorize to publish the request for proposals. It'll really transform our meter system, and there's just a number of benefits to the city that'll.
Commissioner Kolpak, do I have a motion?
You do.
Is there a second? Long evening. I appreciate your presentation. We'll ask questions, I think, later in the week if we want to add
Just
something.
one
to
quick
Chris
comment. I
Kolpak.
want to commend Water Treatment Plant for their approach to long-term capital projects and debt management. And it really is the model used by all the utilities, including solid waste and water reclamation. So thank you very much.
Very good. Excellent report. Roll call vote, please.
Colpack.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Item 56, application for abatement or refund of taxes 4546 and 4547 for property located at 4773 32nd Street South, requesting reduction of value in 2022 from $749,400 to $650,000, and from 2023 from $887,600 to $660,000. Mike Popowski to explain.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. The applications before you are requesting reductions of the 2022 and the 2023 certified values. The evidence submitted by the appellant for support of a reduction is that there were no forthcoming offers when they listed their property in 2021, and that there was no comparable sales. We analyzed both the sales of comparable properties as well as comparably assessed properties for equalization purposes. Even though the property is a bit larger than normal for this property class, we were able to identify what we think are comparable sales. For the 2022 values, we have listed 5 sales with a median sales price of $333 per square foot, which supports the 2022 value of $328 per square foot for the subject. Comparable assessed properties were valued between $269 per square foot and $349 per square foot. These numbers support the value, and so we are recommending retaining the 2022 value of $749,400. For 2023, the comparable sales show a median sales price of $346 per square foot. With the current value of $388 per square foot, we do think that the value is overstated, and we are suggesting a reduction down to $343 per square foot, or $784,000 for the subject, and that is down from $887,600.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Colpack.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Item 57, the suggested motion is with respect to the agreement to grant emergency egress easement and to grant an option for a parking lease. I move that the form of agreements with the red line changes as provided in the laydown items distributed to you in the executive commission or meeting are approved as presented, and the mayor is authorized for a period ending 4 p.m. on Friday, November 3rd, 2023, to execute an agreement provided that the mayor in his reasonable discretion is satisfied that there is no pending or threatened litigation, injunction, or any other order that prohibits consummation of the terms of the agreements or any part thereof. Can I have that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston.
Aye.
Colpack.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. We're getting there. Item 58, Mike Reddinger to explain the Fargo Moorhead Metropolitan Area End and Homelessness Task Force discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'll be brief with my remarks tonight in the interest of time, but I prepared a memo that I included in the packet for you just to talk about the early formation of a task force to discuss homelessness in the Fargo-Moorhead metropolitan community. Step one is the organization of a political alignment meeting, as what we're terming it, with the cities of West Fargo, Moorhead, Fargo, Cass County, and Clay County. That work is underway right now. We are hoping to have a first meeting of the elected leaders of those entities in early November. Following that, we're going to determine what I'm calling the collaborative capacity of those entities. We're going to determine if they want to participate in a metro task force and what representation they would like to see. So we will have a greater sense of what that task force will look like in terms of composition at a political level after this initial meeting with the other entities. The companion to that is what I included at the bottom of the memo that I prepared, and that is a technical advisory group, if you will. This will be a response leaders group. These are topical experts, subject matter experts that will help inform the political leadership that is established for a task force and give some sense of the problem statements as well as some technical recommendations about where we go moving forward in terms of guiding principles. I was asked earlier today about timing for all of these activities. We start November here on Wednesday, so we do hope that we will have, again, this political alignment meeting first in early November, could have a task force meeting established shortly thereafter, have at least one meeting, maybe two, yet this year, and then also be standing up with the Fargo Cass Public Health staff, this technical advisory group as well, to help us inform that committee moving forward. So no requested action of the commission this evening. Just wanted to provide that briefing memo so that the commission understood where we were at with the formation of this task force. Thank you.
Any questions or discussion? Commissioner Kolpak.
Just a comment I wanted to share that certainly was a priority for me, but we had a discussion of this task force creation at our last governance meeting, and there's certainly a support across the board for formation of this. And the last comment is that as we proceed with this work and as we continue to have outcomes that come from this work, it will continue to be very important. We continue to communicate with the public all of the work that's being done.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Preston.
So, as I understand, are you referring to the task force as being the political alignment group?
So the task force would be the entirety of both entities, but the principal group will be the decision makers. And that's what we're calling that top group. The decision makers really will make the calls as it relates to future actions, metro strategies, et cetera. But they will be informed by the good technical work of a staff committee and nonprofit committee below them.
So my concern here would be that if we don't get that political alignment, then what happens?
Correct.
And are you still thinking that the response leaders would still get together? And back to my earlier comment about we got to make sure that there's resources and authority given to this group to actually do something.
Yes, so I envision two responses to that. Thank you, Commissioner Preston. Number one, we will certainly keep the commission apprised if this political alignment meeting does not result in the interest in participation. We'll do that, number one, because if there is a task force to be established, I would envision that would come back to the commission. We'd want to have the commission approve that and have that be a memo prepared in follow-up. But number two, I think you're correct. We could still have that technical group gather. They could still make recommendations and provide guidance for Fargo's elected leaders about where we should go on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been by the request by many to get a strategic plan in regards to this issue, and it's a hope that with this, so we can get a strategic plan that the community understands and is well understood.
Thank you.
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes, Mr. Strand.
Just one comment I'd like to interject earlier on into this process. We need to also make sure that stakeholders are engaged who are recipients of the services provided. We need folks who know and live and breathe the topic of homelessness, not only working in those lanes, but living it, who can give us real world guidance when needed as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Strand.
Thank you.
Item 59, recommendation from Commissioner Preston for changes in the liquor license ordinance. Be explained by Commissioner Preston.
So this is just follow-up to a couple of conversations we've been having or discussions we've been having. One was the more recent hearing that we had last week. And At least I think I heard some consensus that scanners should be considered for requirement. And actually, we've been talking about this for at least a couple years, probably 3. So just wanting to formalize that. And then there's been a couple of other requests, being annual background checks as a requirement for renewal of a liquor license. And then finally, license holders should notify the city of any change to manager and liquor establishment. And that really relates to some of the other issues that we've identified in the last couple of years. I know, whether the Liquor Control Board has brought this forward or not, I haven't seen anything. So just wanting to indicate that the direction is to move forward with this. And I would make the motion if somebody would second it.
Is there a second?
I will second it, Mayor Mahoney.
Okay. Steve Sprague, can you come just put him? So there was a meeting, Commissioner Pipcorn had Steve Sprague and Chief Zabowski in regards to the Liquor Control Board and or looking into these things. I think the hang up was we were trying to have a public meeting with the commissioners, and because of everybody's schedule, we can't do that till December. So the scanner issue is something you guys have been talking about, am I correct?
Yes, absolutely. You're correct. We did talk about having a brown bag that would involve the liquor board and the city commission. We've been working on the scheduling of that. In addition to these items, we are also looking at the penalty matrix and how exactly we want to move forward with that. So there are a number of issues. You're absolutely correct. Just for instance, with the idea of scanners, do you require all licensees to have the scanners? Or do you say somebody like Nicole's Pastry or Photolicious, maybe they don't need to have the scanners? I mean, those are things that we're looking for direction on. Does the city decide which level of scanner we should be having? Is it one that just tells you whether or not the person is over 21? Or is it one that has more forensic capabilities? Something that can maybe detect a fake ID, some of those kinds of things. There are, just to say that everybody should use scanners, I think those are some of the discussions that we've been having internally as staff and at the liquor board. And so, I think to get the direction from the city commission in a brown bag setting would be very helpful.
And Commissioner Pipcorn, isn't that matrix something you want to look at? I think as I understood it, Nancy's been looking at it somewhat, but isn't there some complex things that you wanted, the chief has wanted, just for endorsement or enforcement?
Yep. So on October 2nd, Nancy, the city attorney, the city auditor, and the chief, we all met. We were talking about all these issues. These are all things. We kind of set our course for what we're doing. But the scanners, it takes time. And to give you an example, we're trying to set up a time where they can come and give us a presentation. Well, even that's been challenging. So we are working on all these things. I would say that, and the Liquor Control Board, I think we do a good job. To have the other city commissioners start injecting themselves into our agendas, I think is a little unusual. And so to me, we're working on all these things, but to me, to require scanners for everybody that sells alcohol, that's a huge decision, and that's a huge amount of money. The scanners are many thousands of dollars, and for a small business, that's a lot. And so I think there's some of these things we need to look at, but I would say we're looking at them. That's what we're working on. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Kolpak.
Yeah, I certainly support the idea of taking a look at these ordinance revisions. My understanding after the District 64 hearing is that is exactly what the Liquor Control Board was going to do. And I also struggle going outside of protocol when, every member of the commission is a volunteer who's giving of their time and expertise serving on this commission. These are nuanced conversations that have a lot of context around them. And I think, I certainly support looking at all these things, but I think step one should be coming from the Liquor Control Board with the recommendations.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Preston.
So when we are asked to make a decision about a penalty, and with that is the expectation that somebody has used a scanner, that's what I'm concerned about, is that those decisions are coming to the city commission. They're not stopping at the Liquor Control Board. So I don't feel comfortable, really, making those decisions without having that requirement in place. It's kind of like a gotcha after it's happened. Oh, and by the way, you should be using a scanner. So, and I'm not saying that this would necessarily be everybody. That's something that needs to come forward as a recommendation. What I'm asking for here is that the discussion happens and it formally moves forward.
Just a question, Nancy. With this motion, you're already doing these issues right now, or how does this change anything?
I would concur that we've been looking at these issues, have circulated some drafts and back on some of these issues, and are working through the process.
But does it change anything having the motion to what you've been doing? You've been following your processes as you do. You're having somebody come in and talk about scanners. The commission is looking at matrices, or liquor control is, right?
That is correct. I'm not sure what the motion advances or changes.
Thank you. Any other, Commissioner Peppercorn?
Just real quick, Mr. Chair, to me, this is, I mean, this is very strong language. It requires us in 1 month to requirement for the use of scanners. That's very strong language.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Strand?
Mayor Mahoney and Mr. Chairman, I guess my thinking is we're all right. I support Commissioner Preston's desire to advance this. However, I also respect the processes that it would entail to advance such policy studies and reviews. So maybe the compromise we look for is for us to agree that we're asking the Liquor Control Board to report back to us on these topics after they've vetted them properly and engaged their constituents with it. And then we hear what their recommendations are, but I don't want them to disappear either.
You could question whether you want to amend that motion that it's 30 days in report.
I guess here's my recommendation, and I would suggest an amendment where we add for recommendations and options in their, to present ordinance revisions, recommendations and options, and then to report back to the city commission on their process in a timely fashion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. So we will vote on the amendment first
Actually, I could accept it probably as
part of the motion.
as a substitute motion even.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Preston,
Aye.
Kolpak,
No.
Pepcorn,
No.
Mahoney.
Oh. Item 60, recommendation for the Housing Redevelopment Authority. You have my recommendations. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Kolpak.
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Preston,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. 61, applications for property tax exemption for improvements made to building. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Kolpak.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Liaison Commissioner assignment updates. John, you're wait from us. Do you want to try anything, or are you okay?
I'm okay for the moment. Thank you.
Mr. Kolpak?
So I have the longest presentation, but I promise I'll go fast today. It's all really important stuff. Number one, for the second year in a row, the city of Fargo won the award for best tasting drinking water in North Dakota. So congratulations to the entire water treatment plant. And also, construction began to upgrade the filters in the older section of the water treatment plant. It's a $6.4 million project with an EPA grant program that will fund 4.8 of that. And it will replace the anthracite and coal filters with granular activated carbon filters, which are more modern design for water plants, especially for ozone treatment. This is a picture of the Fargo Youth Initiative who met yesterday with their new members and some repeat members. And just a reminder that applications are open all year for any high school students interested in serving on that youth initiative.
How big can that get? Can you have 20?
We have a limit. I don't have that number in front of me, but we have a range
Just
for the size
curious,
of
you
the.
just-
I'll find out.
They
I'll
look
find
like
out.
really bright kids.
They are. There was a lot of interest this year. From the Fargo Fire Department, at 2 a.m. on Sunday, it is time to turn our clock backs. It's a great time for everyone to check the batteries and test all smoke and carbon monoxide detectors in your home. And when you change your batteries, check to see if your smoke and carbon monoxide detectors are more than 10 years old. If they are, be sure to replace them. And also, October was Fire Prevention Month. During October, the department provided Learn Not to Burn education to all kindergarten, first, and second grade classes in Fargo, offered to 24 schools, 211 classes, and over 4,000 students. And last slide, workers continue building fire station number 8, but they started putting walls into place this morning. Over the next 7 to 9 days, all wall and roof components should be installed. It's being constructed along 64th Avenue South and 33rd Street. Thank you.
Fantastic. I just report the inlet is moving, came to us. That's really a big sign. And when the diversion was asking for funds from the state, when they saw that inlet going up, then they realized we were a business. And if you go out there and look at it, it's a fantastic structure and engineering feat you will see. The ditch part is also moving along, and they're now moving. They used to move 1.2 million cubic yards a month. They moved over 2 million cubic yards this last month. Now, they don't like the slimy mud that comes in the fall, but they actually like it when it gets cold. For those of you who don't like the cold, they like the cold. So they're doing great work, and it continues to be theoretically ready to fight a flood in 27. So we'll keep pushing them to get it done. Commissioner Preston.
So the only thing I have to report is I think most of us were at the meeting, the housing forum that ARP put on a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and it was really helpful. It was about the missing middle. And I had an opportunity to just visit with some of the local volunteers and the executive director just last week. They have a lot of resources and are enthused about getting engaged on this issue. So I think it's a community-based group that it would be wise for us to continue to connect with and use their national expertise as well as their local kind of organizing. So.
Yeah, that was an excellent presentation. Commissioner Pipcorn.
I apologize. This is the only time I'm going to talk at this, and it's the longest meeting in the world, so I apologize. But our long-range plan, that's an awesome thing for Fargo, but I'm very concerned that Horace, that we're compatible, and I think they're under so much pressure to grow, and so I think our engineering staff, the MetroCog planning group, but also Fargo or West Fargo and Cass County, we have to help them because I think they're kind of like Western North Dakota, where it's a small town and they're getting so much pressure to develop, and our arterials go in through Horace, and now some of them are being lost. And if we don't have a long-range plan for connectivity, it's going to be hard to go back and get those lanes open again, I guess what I'm saying. And so I know we have to be diplomatic with Horace, but it's a small town, and it's very important to us and West Fargo that we're all together. And so I think our engineering department is very big. We have lots of staff, lots of excellent people, also our planning department, but I think we have to do that however it all works, but we have to proactively try to, because, and Mayor, we've had some issues with the state not being supportive of some of our long-range plans for 76th and 100th. We have to reserve those corridors, because if we don't, you can't go back in time. And so that's happening now. And so I don't know, I'm sorry for rambling, but this is a very important topic, and we have to, whatever we can do, and maybe you can help, Mayor, too, but I think it's something. So thank you very much.
Well, I think we're talking to the engineering department in our corridor studies in 52. The traffic counts have gone up like crazy, and that's the difficulties we're getting now as we're getting clogged up, and we really are growing faster than we thought, and we have to address those issues. Great comments. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. John, enjoy New Orleans.